Today, I'm outside the Elgin Middlesex Detention Center that is a maximum security jail. EMDC originally built for 150 inmates, but now there are more than 450. People in this institution are people who are recently arrested and waiting for their court process. Life inside prison is like living in a complete different world. When these inmates are locked up and completely disconnected from the society, the John Howard Society, a non-profit charitable organization, believes in giving them a second chance. Chris Morris from John Howard, a social worker for 25 years, talks more about prison life.
You mind your own business. Direct eye contact is a big no-no. If you stare at somebody, that's gunning them off. That can get you into trouble. If you stare at somebody, they're gonna, what do you want? You never use the word goof. That is the ultimate insult in a prison. If you call someone a goof, then they are expected to fight you. If they don't respond, then they'll be immediately deemed a weak person, and then they become vulnerable to being taken advantage of or beaten up by other inmates. You don't whistle in prison, because that's something you do when you're happy, and if you're happy in prison, what's wrong with you? I found out recently that you're not supposed to pee standing up when you're in your cell at night. You share a cell with other prisoners, and if you stand up to pee, it makes noise and can splatter, and so if you do that, then you will be beat up. I had a client who didn't know that and ended up coming out of his cell in the morning pretty bruised and battered because he didn't know. It was during one of the federal elections. I was the returning officer in our local detention center here in London. So we were in the women's unit, and everyone was coming out, taking their turn, taking their ballots, going behind the screen, filling them out in the usual manner, just like you would at any polling station. And the lady comes out after filling her ballot out and hands it to me, and because it's a mail-in ballot for her home riding, she puts it in an envelope. I make a point of sealing it up in front of her, and then I said, can you check that it's sealed? And she did, and she says to me, like, why are you being so serious about this? Like, what's the big deal? And I said, well, you're voting. This is an important thing. You're a Canadian citizen. And she looked at me kind of strange, and she goes, in all my years, and she was probably in her late 20s, I've never felt more like a Canadian citizen right now, right here in this jail than at any other point in my life. And I thought, wow, that's really profound, both in a good way, that I was able to bring that to her in a place such as a jail, but also in a really sad way that someone in their late 20s could have, to that point in their life, never really felt a part of society. And I thought, and this is why this is unforgettable, this really tells a story about the kind of people that end up in jail and their lives and how they function in our society and what's going on for them, that they feel so disconnected.
For some, the correctional experience could be a new beginning, but for others, it could be the beginning of the end.
People that we work with are just like you and I. I grew up very, middle-class upbringing. My parents, abided by the law. Some of these people have, parents given them drugs when they're 7 or 9 years old. Like, what kind of parents did they have?
What happens to these people after they're released? Where do they go? How do they survive? Are they offered a job? What are their life like after prison? Will be continued in the next part. This is Chrysolin Gracy for Prison Life.